welcome back to another edition of the Bebo Knows podcast. This is your host, Brian Bullock, and with me, I think for the third time, I want to say, is Professor Shine. You could catch him on Twitter at Professor Shine. How you doing tonight, Professor?
Brian, the professor, is doing well tonight. I think
Yeah.
it's if well means that I'm not, I'm relatively healthy. But the phone works. My internet doesn't. At my dwelling here, so I had to reboot the modem. But everything's okay. I hope you're okay in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be. Yeah, I would be happier if the Niners made the Super Bowl. But happy Super Bowl week, by the way. You guys have the Super Bowl, and we're gonna obviously talk a lot about that. I know that was one of the things that
Well,
that we might as well
yeah.
dive right in because I know that
Let's dive right in.
I want to touch base on like a little personal part that you were telling me through the chat here, just to tie everything together. So you've been dealing with a lot of house crap this week in terms of you're looking to close on a house, or you've closed on a house, and it's just a lot of hassle. And like part of it was them checking your financials, and you were saying, "Oh, should I tell them that this X amount of money is money that I took out for props?" And that's always a fun thing to try and explain to somebody in the financial spectrum.
Yeah, I guess if you're going to be if you're going to write on your tax forms any kind of thing that has to do with betting, you're going to have a problem. You better buy your house as cash.
Yeah.
That's basically what happens. Or you better either have a partner or marry somebody that has like a real job. So that's good advice because even if you get an unconventional loan, they're going to say, "Well, wait a minute, this is a sticking point." The only sticking point I had is that this is the week before Super Bowl, which like an idiot, I didn't realize that the Super Bowl is now in June or however it is. I keep thinking it's when I was younger, it was mid-January.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, February. That's a good time to move in. Let me move in February. And meanwhile, it's the week of the Super Bowl, and I took money out of the bank, and they're like, "Well, what's this? Why'd you take money out of the bank?" I'm like, "Well, because I'm trying to bet Miles Sanders is under. That's why." And they were like, "Well, wait a minute, wait, what?" So I don't know. It reminds me of an old Alan Boston podcast where he said, "I'm really good at gambling. I'm really bad at real estate," and I have a lot in common with that because I think people underestimate the tunnel vision of people who bet sports. We don't know a lot of the things. I mean, you would think we do, but we this is the main thing. You know what I mean? This addiction, you're either good at it or you're slow at it. If you're kind of good at it, it's probably even worse. You're probably good if you stink at it because they know if you're going to throw this kind of thing. But it's okay. I move in next week. I'm not in my house, right? I'm not in the house I thought I was going to be in. I'm in the condo that I own that has no heat right now and no internet, and that's okay because we have a phone and we're good to go.
Yeah, we're good. So before you dive into the props, I guess one thing that maybe I don't know if you want to preface the props that you did bet with like when you bet them, because obviously that whenever people do these betting shows, sometimes they forget to mention, "Oh, hey, I bet this last week and now it's 2 yards more, 5 yards more, or 50 cents more," so like I don't know how you want to go about which ones you bet, or like your approach to like, hey, maybe you prefer to bet at this point, or maybe you prefer to bet earlier in the week when props are first released. Like, I don't know, maybe kind of go through your process, or like however you want to discuss it.
Sure. I mean, listen, people are going to listen to this and think, okay, well, how can I duplicate this? And I'm going to tell them, please don't. do the opposite of what I do. Follow Rufus and the other guys who are, I don't want to say better attuned to the numbers, but have a better strategy toward it. I think mine is decent, but I can also lose you a lot of money as well. So my strategy over what year are we in? 2022. It always confuses me when the Super Bowl's in 2023 and it's the year 2022 football year.
Yeah.
It seems silly, but from a lifelong baseball bettor, it's really simple. Like, what year did you do bad in baseball? It would be 2004.
Yeah.
There's no carryover. So with that as context, I'll say that I've been doing props for probably 25 years. I've been probably doing it decently for probably 20.
Okay, so like when you first started doing the props, are we talking about like are the options to like the different types of bets that you could make then, like is it like pale in comparison in terms of number of bets that you can make, or like, not, maybe that's not the right thing, but the number of options there are to bet?
Oh yeah, there's Brian. There's way more now.
Yeah.
There's way more now. But I think the first time I really got involved seriously with props was the Green Bay New England game.
Okay, the Woodson MVP.
So back then, and then the next year when it went Green Bay Atlanta. So that's it's a long time ago, and there was still will teams score 3 times in a row? There's a lot of that. There wasn't the same stuff there is now. So I dabbled around in that, but then I ultimately took the strategy that I took in the 90s with my strategy of the 90s as far as games in NFL, which was unders and dogs. So
okay.
I knew people overbet popular people, and if they said John Elway and Terrell Davis a million times, and if they said Favre, it just, you knew that maybe there was some value in the numbers, in fading the popular people. That was basically the simple strategy that I had from probably not whatever the year that was, 96 until 2002. And 2002 is significant because I was wrong. I was wrong on most Super Bowls. I had Denver, the Broncos, but we're talking for small amounts. The Broncos, the year that they beat Green Bay, they were, if you remember, if you care to think back that far, they were a really good team. They were a 1 seed the year before. I actually tweeted this out about a month ago. They were a 1 seed, a phenomenal team. Terrell Davis, that was a team, Steve Atwater's prime. It was just, they had a really good team, and they got upset by Jacksonville at home.
Yeah, like 14-point dogs, I think, or 14
favorites
or something like that.
Oh, yeah, and that famous Brunell's, Elway came back. They came back. They made the score close, and then it was like, if they can make a stop. And then Brunell made that run that for a while was pretty historic. It was almost like the Steve Young run, if you think about it. But it was done during playoff time. And he made that run, not only first down, but it was just first down and more. And it's basically sealed the game for Jacksonville. And then Jacksonville goes up to New England, loses a close game. And then I think a year or two later, Jacksonville's the 1 seed. Coughlin's the coach, of course, and they go 14-2, and then Tennessee goes in there and rips their whole house down. That was the end of Jacksonville. But but I bring it up because that Denver team, I always thought about. I was like, that's basically the same team. The next year, they had some injuries during the season. They go in as a wild card, and I basically played futures with Broncos. I said, this is the same team. I don't care if they're wild card. It's the same team, and I played futures with them. And then I knew if I got to the Super Bowl, my narrative was going to be that they were going to win the game. So I patterned every prop with that narrative.
Okay.
So I faded Favre. I faded Sharp wasn't on that team, obviously, but it was like Freeman, the whole gamut. And if you remember, that was the year they went in, Broncos, on the rematch. They killed Jacksonville at home in the wild card game. They go to Kansas City and sadly beat Kansas City, who was the 1 seed. Then they go to Pittsburgh and beat Cowher, and I think Cordell Stewart was the quarterback. They go to the Super Bowl. They're big underdogs. They win the game. So that was the first year that I had a narrative, and I patterned the props after the narrative. The next couple of years, so it worked really well that year. And my advice to people was, you're not going to be completely scientific. You want to get the best number on the things that you want, but you almost have to have a little. There's so much variance in the Super Bowl that I think it helps you to have some kind of a narrative. So, you know what? I think this is going to happen in the game. I think this team's going to win. And I think you go down that path of, okay, if that team wins, what is more likely to happen?
Sure.
Especially if you have the underdog. So I bring up the Bronco example as an example of having a pretty substantial underdog, and then all that, came out. A couple years later, I hit the mother lode, which was the Tampa-Oakland game, and I remember that Tampa beats Philly, so it was it was a prominent game here because it was a lot like they're doing, now, Brian. They acted like, Tampa was a walkover. We beat them before. It's going to be, we're going to win the Super Bowl. We'll walk over Tampa. We go in, we're going to play Oakland. Rich Gannon's from Philly. He has this whole Philly thing. You knew Rich Gannon was from Philly, or I know way too much stuff. But Rich Gannon was not only from Philly, he was like, he did everything for a prominent school here, St. Joe's. He did everything but, sell like hot dogs. So he's a prominent guy. You're like, it's going to fit a perfect fit. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Tampa's the defense. Tampa wins the game. They go to Super Bowl. They're dogs. Like more than 3.
Yeah.
So my narrative for that was, if Tampa wins the game, what does it look like? And that was how I kind of patterned my props. Of course, the under for that game didn't come in, right? Because Tampa scored like 900 points. But, Oakland's under came in. I played Tampa multiple different ways. Tampa minus 20 things. So through the years, that's kind of how I looked at the games. Now, there's been games where I've been totally wrong. The Kaepernick San Fran game against Baltimore stands out, where I had San Fran. And I faded a lot. And the reason that hurts me because I the numbers that I use the year before, I had the Ravens as a better team. That's the year that they shanked a field goal inside the 5.
Yeah, Billy Cundiff.
If they made the Super Bowl, I don't know what it have to play against the Giants. They would have killed the Giants. The Condiff Shank and the AFC Championship game I had. It was an overlay with New England. I had the money line, a bunch of things. So when that didn't come out, I didn't play as many props because I thought both teams stunk. You know, that Green Bay. Remember that year? It was the New England Giants game that finished 21-17. It was a crappy game, and so the next year the Ravens go and make the group up. But all the numbers I had said that they weren't as good, and I had San Fran as a better team, so I lost everything. I lost not everything, but I lost a lot because my narrative was like San Fran's going to win this game by more than 4.5. I've had more big winners than losers, but in those years, I bring up the Tampa because I'm so I can't believe that Oakland was favored by that much.
Yeah.
But you can ask me any questions in the last 20 years. I can tell you exactly how I did, and it was all based on that premise of saying, here's what I think is going to happen. Let me try to get best numbers to fill what I think is going to happen.
Okay. So let's tie it back to the current year. So you had mentioned Miles Sanders unders. I'm guessing you've laid some cash down on that.
Well, I think if I'm not wrong, the market should be. I had some off-market numbers on Sanders.
Okay.
But my overall idea is that, there's a couple, again, it's not completely scientific. Somebody could poke holes in what I'm saying, especially in this town. They're like, what are you talking about? Sanders is great. I don't think Sanders is any good. I think he's okay. So I think, and there's certain things that the Eagles have done, especially to the end of the year, that I think they know he's just a serviceable guy. And for me to get a total on him, like 54.5 total rushing yards out of the gate, I think it was just high. So I played under, and I think market is around 47, maybe 48. I think people smarter than me will hit that, but I did get that early. I do think you get a lot of good. I do think you get a lot of good unders the more you wait.
Yeah, that's a question I was going to ask because I had always heard that with props that if you really like an under, especially with props to wait, because I know with like passing yards, like that's one thing I look at quite a bit. Where else, like I'm not to say I bet it, but I just like to see how much it moves, and sometimes you can get like I wouldn't say like a middle. I wouldn't say recommending a middle, but like you could definitely get some middles if you really wanted to with some of these. If you really wanted to, not that I say I recommend that, but so you're saying that still applies where a lot of times if you like the under, just to wait a little bit.
Well, there's some people that go. There's groups that go around and just to ARB. That they'll take 2,000 here, 2,000 here, 1,000 here, 1,000 here, and they'll try to ARB. What amounts to 15 to 18% middles. Look at Dallas Goddard. I never pronounce his name. Is it Goddard or Goddard? I don't know.
I think it's Goddard. Yeah.
I love him as a player. I think I just do. I think how he got hurt was bullshit. I hated that he had to miss any time and all. I love him as a player, but somebody posted. Was it PointsBet? I don't know. I had somebody. There, of course, there's tons of PPHs out there. There's tons of underground books. Of course, there's offshore, but I searched everything. Somebody posted a 54.5 on Goddard out of the gate. I hit under right away. I just said that what I have is like 54 and a half. So, you know, when it settled, it was 45. So do you want to arb 45 and 54 for the tight end for the Eagles? I don't know. That's a pretty big, you know, it's not, you know, that 9 yards could be important. He could also have no catches, you know. So
Yeah.
What's most likely to happen? He's probably going to be, I don't know. He could be somewhere in that range, but I didn't arb that. But if somebody arbed that, I wouldn't say they're an idiot. You know, I'd say, okay, you know, what juice did you get on one side? I mean, I think the Borgata here opened 45 and a half minus 105. I think that's what it opened at.
Okay.
So if you have 54 minus 105 or even or minus, you know, okay, maybe you want to try to land in the middle. I don't know. I just took the 54 and a half under. We'll see what happens. I'll give you the Sanders example. Now the people have bet into the market. I still got a 64 and a half. That's high. That's high for rushing yards. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's high. It's way too high. But you know, there are limits. But who cares? I mean, if it's a nickel limit, okay, I'll take it for that. I can't take it for $2,000, but I'll take it for that. I think he's right around. I don't know what you've seen, but you know, he's in the 50s. There are, like I said, there are some groups that go around just arb everything, and I guess maybe they get 10% of them. Maybe is it worth it? It's possible, but there's so many different things now. It's almost overwhelming, and not every book offers the same. Forget the same price. They don't even offer the same bets.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
I also think, Brian, there's a problem. You can get carried away with too much plus money too. You're like, oh, you know, such and such is like with somebody from here. Like Hassan Reddick is really popular now. All of a sudden, I say all of a sudden because the guy went to Temple. It was great. Like, you know, he's local guy. He's from South Jersey. So it's like, if you don't know who Hassan Reddick was 10 years ago, you're an idiot. You know. But these guys are like, as soon as he plays for the Eagles, they're like, oh, Hassan Reddick. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I know who the fuck Hassan Reddick is. What are you talking about? Yeah. So, like, you know, he was a first-round pick. He went to Arizona. Okay. Look, oh, yeah, he's great. You know, he is how great he is. This is the Eagles fan. So, like, yeah, he's a great guy. He's blah, 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 blah. So they're playing his MVP prop to, like, you know, 25 to 1.
Yeah.
Okay. He should be 40 to 1, 50 to 1, 25 to 1. But bet him to get, like, over one sack.
Yeah, that seems way more reasonable because when you start thinking about the like these unique positions, and when I say unique, I just mean outside of quarterback, what it takes to win an MVP. And I remember breaking this down a while back, and I'm sure it's changed a little bit since then. But, you know, for a defensive player to win MVP, you're going to need them to at least score one touchdown, you think. And then, like, you would need kind of you would need your offense to be kind of because they tend to give it to quarterbacks even if they have somewhat mediocre games. So I don't know. I think you're right about the sack.
I agree. The quarterback's going to get the benefit of the doubt. But we have seen times where the quarterback has played like you just said, like kind of like, all right, who else is there? Like Deion Branch, I think, won the Super Bowl MVP one year, right? I mean, it's because he had 13 catches. They could have gave it to Brady. It's almost like they were like, we had Brady fatigue at that point. We're like, all right, well, you know what? What he did isn't as good as what he did in the other Super Bowl. So let's give it to Deion Branch. Yeah, I just, I'm not saying that's fair, but
Yeah.
I think it evens it out where when in doubt, the quarterback will get the benefit of the doubt
Yeah.
unless we have fatigue. Like Brady, we had fatigue. He made it too many times, and we almost had. I go back to a time where we had Montana fatigue, and I defy anybody to go back and watch the '88 Bengals San Fran Super Bowl, and the one that gave Rice the MVP, and look at every pass that he caught. He literally turned around and the ball was in his hands.
Yeah.
Like you can't. There's not a ball where he had to stretch his hands out. And then go to the final touchdown. John Taylor. I mean, anybody could name the shittiest wide receiver that you know. He would have caught that pass for the touchdown. So it's like if any time he ever deserved an MVP, it was '88. Plus, now that, the lure of him not even giving a shit, he's looking and he's like, look, John Candy's in the, you give the MVP for that. So it made me think that, he won in '84. He won in '81. And we're kind of like, let's give it to somebody else. So if Mahomes, so this is interesting because, like, if Mahomes, let's say Kansas City wins a close game and Kelsey catches 2 touchdowns, Mahomes throws 3, or Mahomes throws 2, and McKinnon gets in there for 1 or whatever, and we could have Mahomes fatigue. Mahomes, he just won the MVP for the league for the season. Maybe they do give to Kelsey. And Kelsey is anywhere from 9 to 12 to 1. So there is some pull for that. I do. I do. I was listening to another pod, Brian. I know you haven't had time, but there was, I can't remember. I'm getting older, so I can't remember listening to a pod or Mad Dog Radio or one of these other stations where they were talking about something when I was younger I knew off the top of my head was the '87 strike year where Gibbs wins the Super Bowl with Doug Williams and Timmy Smith, a no-name guy, runs for 900 yards, whatever. He went crazy. Yeah. And I don't think he won the MVP. I think Doug Williams won the MVP.
I don't remember that off. Yeah, I was like.
I hear you typing. But
I'm about to type. Point,
yeah, look it up because my internet sucks. But I think Doug Williams won the. That's telling. Like if you're going to run all over the place, you still don't run the MVP. Quarterback's probably going to get it.
Yeah.
Unless we have fatigue. I don't think that's a narrative. I think that's a decent strategy because we compare. You might be comparing Mahomes this game to when he played against San Fran, which is not fair, but
yeah, which was an outstanding fourth quarter comeback by them.
What if he plays well in the third quarter and Kelsey makes like a one-handed catch. Kelsey could end up winning, or So it's I don't know how much it could play into, but when you have an 11-1 versus basically plus 105, it could matter in what your narrative of the game is going to be.
Yeah. So I just looked up the Redskins stats for that game. Smith had 204 for 2 touchdowns, but Williams did throw 340 for 4 touchdowns. So it's not like he had it was a worthy game. I would say that was probably a tough call. Yeah. It's,
when you think back in '79, they gave it to they gave it to like the entire defense. 78. They gave it to the entire like Cowboys defensive line. Maybe they should have split it between Williams and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if yeah, you could like it could be like the turkey leg on on Thanksgiving, where when
exactly.
When Madden would give out the turkey legs to the whole offensive line or something like that. Um, but yeah, so yeah, is that so with MVP market? Is that something you really dabble in much, or you just
Uh,
kind of stay away from that?
I take a couple flyers, but like again, like with when somebody said, "Oh yeah, Reddick. What if he gets 3 sacks and a fumble?" Well, Red should be 40 or 50 to 1. If you're betting
Yeah,
25 to 1, you don't bet it. If I don't get some crazy number, and even
yeah,
then it's a lottery. It's not something you handicap. It's something uh, uh, Reddick's from South Jersey. Okay, let me play 25 hours on it to
yeah,
see if he wins. It doesn't come into any serious and I'm not a big fan of anything that's voted on anyway.
yeah. That's
I,
yeah, that's
yeah.
tough. Yeah, that's kind of my reason for not really caring for the like Winter Olympics, just because of how everything I could there's a lot of sports that where like if voting's involved, I'm kind of sketchy on the on that, or like even wanting to bet it, I should say. um
And it's shitty for me because uh, I grew up a big boxing fan, and I'm not just a fan.
yeah,
Like I was one of those lunatics. They used to years ago in Philly. Blue Horizon used to have open seating, and it was like whoever got to the front first could sit wherever they wanted. Like I was one of those idiots just to get get to the front, and then you could sit and hang over and watch the the ring, from
yeah,
the upper deck. People were allowed to smoke cigars, and so I was like a diehard boxing guy. I'm friendly with people that do undercards, and I knew a lot about it from the '80s on, and people used to ask me, well, you have to have some kind of edge in that, and I was like, well, not really, because I don't know who's judging. Not to
yeah,
say it was fixed, but to say that some people have a bias on certain styles,
yeah,
and I didn't like it. I didn't like if you got the wrong judge, you better knock the person out. It's just, but people misconstrue that and they're like, oh well, it's rigged. No, some people don't like aggressive fighters. Some people like
yeah,
Pernell Whitaker type fighters. That's just it's preferences. But it
sure,
goes back to the Olympics, boxing, anything that's subjective is very difficult to handicap.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's like, yeah, I don't know, yeah, if you can even really do a deep dive in those cases on like the people involved in the voting or whatever. But yeah,
Well, Brian, listen, there's times I got lucky and terribly unlucky.
yeah,
Most people
yeah,
talk about their beats. I'll tell you where I got lucky. I had Holyfield in the first Lennox Lewis fight, and it's a push. A draw is a push, and he lost that fight.
yeah.
And
Did that go to the wait? So did that go to distance? That one
it
went
went to
to
this, it
okay,
went to this, and
okay,
I had it for more than I really should have, and
okay,
because I was flying high on the Holyfield through the '90s thing,
sure,
and I had said if, of course, everybody kind of takes credit for Holyfield beating Tyson, but it's really Ron Borges, the writer from Boston Globe, and me. That's it. And Holyfield's family. That's it. Nobody thought that he was going to beat Tyson. But I kind of went overboard. I played Holyfield anytime he fought after that. I was like, yeah, he'll beat Lewis too, and he couldn't beat Lewis. and I got a draw out of it on, he had no business getting a draw on that. So
Yeah.
it taught me, even though I got my money back, I realized you got to be really careful on these kinds of things, and that's why I don't like voting. I still vote for numbers for MVP, but you really shouldn't get overly invested in it. Like I was a little bit overly invested in Ohtani because I had Ohtani in baseball last year, 2 years ago, the year he won it.
Sure.
And, they were floating odds. Brian, they had 30-1, 22-1, 16-1, 11-1. I hit it every way I could hit it. I said, okay. I don't care. Now, it wasn't a huge risk to my background. There were small hits, but and then when he won, it was like hitting the lottery. Well, he opened 3 or 4-1 last year.
Yeah.
And I played it. And I said, if he doesn't get hurt, how is he not the best player? But the only way I could usurp that MVP is if somebody. It's funny because I said the only way he could lose is if somebody from New York does something crazy. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And even then, I thought about it on Twitter, because the chances of the Yankees don't make the playoffs, and Judge hit 65 home runs, he probably doesn't win. But it was the perfect storm to beat Ohtani, and I'm going to go to my grave thinking 20 years from now they're going to look back and be like, how's Ohtani on the MVP here?
Yeah,
you're two all-star players in one. And
I think, that was almost like, they were just, unfortunately, it was like, people already had voter fatigue from him, probably because of the team not being as good as it should have been, or what people expect out of a MVP. They couldn't justify voting for him twice in a row with him so far out of the playoffs, I guess.
Yeah, and I get it. It hurts them, and Judge, I don't,
Yeah, not saying it's right.
I'm pissed because I bet Ohtani. Let's face it.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. But but lesson learned. That again, that when you're doing something subjective, it's really hard. You're at the mercy of who's voting on this, as opposed to actual results. So that was my overall point. That's why I don't get. If we go back to the how do you vote for MVP? The Super Bowl, I think you don't. You maybe take a couple a good number of flyers, but I don't think you get overly invested in that, because if you're going to get overly invested in that, just bet the game. Bet the game. Who do you think's going to win? Don't worry about the MVP so much. Worry about the other things they have more control, or not more control over, but more of things what you think may happen and will actually happen on the field. Nobody's voting on. Yeah, if you vote on the counting stats that are involved in getting the MVP, if you bet on the overs of those, and you happen to be right, then you'll cash. So,
I mean, I agree. I could tell you 20 times that I had flyers on MVPs and they didn't get there. I mean, I had Gasol as the MVP in the year that the Lakers beat the Celtics. I still think I'm robbed. I'm still mad about it. So it's just, don't get overly invested in that. As far as the game itself, I don't want to say that the way I look at it is scientific, but if you do have a narrative of how you came to that narrative, okay, here's based on these metrics that I use, here's how I think the game will play out. I think it's a good strategy to search for good numbers based on how that strategy will come out. So if you think the Eagles are going to win, like the way everybody's been telling me, when I tell you everybody's been telling me, I don't have one dissenting opinion around here. They're going to kill this team. There's a person that I know that's a coach, and he said, and I kind of respect him. Well, I respected him until he said this. He said, this is the best Eagles team ever. Ever. I said, well, give me, what do you mean, offense and defense? He said, the best defense, it's the best team ever, and Kansas City's not that good. Now, let him say his piece. It's only one game. These aren't 7-game series. There's so much variance and unknown in these games that, you could have the best team and not win. It's one game.
Yeah.
And the other team has a quarterback who I really didn't think he was top 10 of all time until really this year. Because I'm really skeptical. Maybe skeptical is not the right word. I don't like the rules now for historical context. You know what I mean? Like when I think back of what Marino would do with these rules, it would be mind-boggling. But you can't think like that when you're thinking about real stuff. So okay, you just treat error to error. And for this error, for as lax as the rules are, think about it, Brian, there ain't that many good quarterbacks, which is kind of mind-blowing. The rules are really patterned for the quarterbacks, and there still aren't that many good ones. And Mahomes is head and shoulders above a lot of these guys. Yeah. Which really tells you a lot, and it really opened my eyes up. I was like, wow, he's really that. I mean, look what he's done. I mean, Tyreek Hill leaves and goes to another team, and it's like it doesn't matter. Now, years ago, I said that when I thought the top 2 best wide receivers in the 90s, I thought was Michael Irvin and Sterling Sharp. If you remember far back, Sterling Sharp had that unfortunate neck fusion surgery, and he couldn't play again. He was paralyzed. Yeah. And the irony of it is I think he was a better player. If he hadn't gotten hurt, he was better than his brother. I know they played slightly different positions. It wasn't like Shannon Sharp blocked anybody. But Sterling Sharp was really good because not only because he was a great receiver and he was a strong guy, but remember, he was one of those rare receivers that blocked people. He was a downfield blocker. He was just a strong guy. The fact that he got hurt was unfortunate. The reason I bring it up is because he retires. The next year, Green Bay wins the Super Bowl. Yeah. So I was like, I said, wow, maybe Favre is that good. Who the hell is Robert Brooks? Who the hell is Antonio Freeman? Maybe the quarterback makes these guys. Yeah. To a point. I mean, when Terrell Owens came to Philadelphia, it was a big difference over Todd Pinkston and the other guys. For sure. So give an elite receiver, it matters. But the Favre situation really made me look and see, okay, well, let's look at everything. And, point being is if you have a really, really elite quarterback and you have a good wide receiver, they can't suck, what McNabb had. So, it's important. So, I mean, Tyreek Hill leaves, and Mahomes still gets to the Super Bowl. And it's not an accident. Yep. So. Well, what else were we talking about? The overall, some of the other problems. Some people
Um,
probably want to hear some of the other props I play. Okay.
yeah. So
Well,
yeah, we were just kind of talking about the MVP. That's what the last thing I mentioned. But like, so yeah. So what are like are you like do you got a lot of other bets down
well,
or
to tell you the truth, I'm wait, in the game itself, I know the game that opened Kansas City favorite, but that's not a true open. That's almost like a marketing open, as you know.
sure?
So although Jeffrey Benson did open it, and he did take some bets on his opinion. In most places, their opinion is worth what? 3-4 bets of $500. And
Yeah.
then the market dictates it. The mythology behind bookmaking is the bookmakers are making this line, when in reality, the bettors are making this line into equilibrium, which drives me crazy that they
Yeah.
take credit for what bettors are doing. If you think a
Yeah.
number, I shouldn't be that anal about it, but I am. I don't know why, but it's like you put the line that you think it should be, and I'll tell you what I think it should be, and let me bet it. If not,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, but
Yeah. So like if you want you could give the bookmaker credit for the very opening line, but if that line changes, then that's all due to the bettor, not to the bookmaker.
exactly,
So
and the only bookmaker I've ever heard admit it was Chris Andrews. He said, "Listen, my opinion's worth about 3 bets." Okay, wonderful.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that you said it, but don't be like Donavello. These guys are like, "Oh yeah, I set the line." No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Put the line where you think it is, and let me bet it. And let me bet it
Yeah.
again. Let me bet it again. Let me bet it
Yeah.
again. Let me
Yeah.
bet it again. And
Yeah.
keep it
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
Keep it that way for 2 weeks and see how
Yeah,
you do.
yeah, okay, yeah. It'll be me and everybody else who's smarter than me hitting that stupid
Yeah.
line. But be that as it may, Jeffrey Circa put it out. Of course, a couple offshores put it out early. And I didn't pay attention to that marketing line, but it was out there, and it was Kansas City favored. And, they changed the narrative. Oh, all the Eagles won, or whatever they wanted to say. All right, the 2 Eagles bets moves it. Great. And if you noticed over the last 2 weeks, it hasn't really budged. It was 2.5 Kansas City, and I knew there was no way it was going to reach 3. And that's another mythology. I'm in the Philadelphia market, and people say, "Oh, well, Philadelphia, all the Eagles people." But that line, if I was booking under Grant, this was 20 years ago, I would 100% list at 3, and these dopes would take the 3. You'd have one guy betting Kansas City. Who gives a shit? If those 3, you're even, and you scoop up all the other money.
Sure.
But it hasn't reached 3. When I was a kid, the saying was, "Oh, the bookies still have their money from the '80 Super Bowl." With the '80 Super Bowl, the Raiders ran over the Eagles. That line wasn't 3; it was 3.5, and people laid it. They would have laid 6. They didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Overall point being that I like Kansas City at not so much 2.5, but at the corresponding money line. And now it's going 1.5. And if you notice, they're juicing. They're not moving the line as much. They're juicing the Eagles, kind of like what they did with the San Fran game. They didn't want to move the line, but they were jacking the juice on the Eagles. The Eagles at one point were minus 137, and then game time it was as high as 161, 162 certain places, and they didn't move the line. So you see what they were doing. They were afraid to move the points because most bettors don't pay attention to the to the corresponding money. So I think Kansas City at any plus is a plus EV bet.
Okay.
Now,
Now,
somebody could ask, well, okay, and this is another thing you never hear from. I don't care if it's VSiN, I don't care if it's whatever these people, these experts, they never tell you, say, oh, I like this game. All right, well, how much do you like the game? What percentage of your bankroll are you risking on the game? You notice that nobody ever says that. Is it? Are you risking $10 and you have $1,000 to risk, or you're risking 900 of your 1,000? It's kind of important to say how much you're risking on a certain bet, and it's never ever. Or at least I haven't heard it. I listen to a lot of stuff. I mean, I think it's worth, a 2% of bankroll bet on Kansas City if you got 2.5. It might be worth 3%. Again, that doesn't mean it's going to win. It's just think in that situation, if you're getting this type of team in that situation, I think it's worth that kind of a risk. I might be a little bit high.
Are you still seeing 2.5? Because I don't really. I'll fully admit that I don't bet much anymore just because of money being kind of tight. But I have been checking the odds, and the last I saw on Bookmaker, I saw KC +1. Now I know Bookmaker isn't the whole market, but I did see that it was like +1.5 earlier this week, at least from what I was checking. So
well, what's interesting, Brian, is that there's some big underground. I hate to call them underground, but there's some big mirrors that have been around for years in this area, from New York to Philly, and they haven't moved off 1.5. So,
okay.
I mean that they were at 2 for a little while, but they're it's almost like they're doing. It's almost like they're going to wait, because the next 48 hours is going to be telling of you get a lot of you got a lot more money, these next 48 hours. Traditional books, online, everybody's going to get more now, like more rec money. I think more of everything. People might be waiting overall. I don't think your opinion changes, though. I mean, if you like Kansas City at 2.5, you probably like them at 1.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, you're not crossing through any key numbers, but yeah.
Sure, but I mean, there's nothing fantastic about this. I like Kansas City. I don't love it. I'll give you the last team that I loved, and it was I mean, shit. We can go back. I can tell you truthfully, everybody in the league since Tampa, everybody I've had, good, bad, different. I'll tell you the last good one. The last good one was Manning's last year, Broncos over Carolina. And I had people at bars laughing in my face. Are you crazy? Manning's dumb. But I value the defense over the offense. If there's anything that correlates to this game, is if you have an elite defense that's an underdog, you have a really good shot in this game. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
I thought I had an elite defense the year Seattle played New England on the interception. But, that line was lined similarly to this game. I think it was 1 or a pick 'em. So it wasn't like I was getting 3. But the Broncos, Carolina, I was getting more than 3. I said, you know what, I'll take it. Similarly, the Tampa example. I was getting more than 3. I said, you know what, I'll take the elite defense. Where I have problems is when the market is kind of aligned in this kind of spot. It doesn't make it as strong a play. Now, if you were going to give me Kansas City +4, of course, every idiot would take in the world. Yeah. Now, people listen to this and be like, well, of course Kansas City was score. But listen, they don't live in this area. There's Eagles fans who are late 4. There's Eagles fans who are with like 6 here.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing you gotta keep in mind too. Yeah, like the market that you're in, um, like there's gonna be some value in not liking the Eagles in this game, or favoring the Chiefs, however you want to view it. So that's another thing. Like, because I'm sure like PPHs or or Vinny's in Kansas City are probably getting Kansas City minus whatever, you know, that they probably have
Sure.
their own version of the line. So,
Well, what's not being said by people that have larger forums is the bookies are very happy to take all the Eagles' money. So that's why they're not moving. The idea of if they get too much on one side, they're going to move it to a certain number. Maybe not. They'll just take it and say, I'll take my chances on an evenly matched team, and you're going to like 2.5. So that's kind of where we're at now. The game that sticks out when I was a kid that was lined really closely, and it wasn't a close game, was the Marino San Fran game. I remember as a kid thinking, Marino broke all these records. Remember, it was his sophomore year.
Yeah.
And, the fact he threw for over 5,000 yards with those rules, it just blows my mind. And anybody that's over 45 has to just shake their head and like, what the heck he was doing. So as you blow it into the Super Bowl with that resume, and even though San Fran was 15-1, they were favored, and it was Montana, but it was a close. It wasn't line 10, it was line 7. It was a close, and that game wasn't close.
Yeah.
So it tells you that if you take it, if you're booking this game, you write it and you go what the market says and take your chances, because I think there's reasons to think that both teams could win it in a blowout. There really is.
Sure.
The Eagles all year have played where they've gotten ahead. They played unbelievably well in the first half, and then they basically don't do anything in the second half. And the other team, with a guy like Mahomes is very Favre-like. Anything could happen. He could have 4 interceptions, and he could have 6 touchdowns. And we go back to what I said a little while ago, and you agree, and most people listening to this pod agree. It's one game. A lot of weird things can happen in one game. This isn't a 7-game series. The randomness, the variance in this is really, 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 really hard to lock down, and pretending this is scientific it is really a stretch. So I think if you try to get the best numbers, like I think the thing I mentioned about Sanders, I think, if the market's saying he's 48 and you can get 54, listen, he might go crazy. He might rush 90, but that's okay. I think I have a good number on that. Yeah. I also think if you like A.J. Brown, if you like Travis Kelce, I think those numbers have gone up and up. And if you can get, if Travis Kelce's number reads 90, I think you'd be an idiot not to bet under. I don't care if he goes for 200 yards. It's not unheard of. It could go to like 88 or 89. It's game day.
Yeah.
And then think about the reality. This is what a lot of people don't think. He can't have 6 catches for 88 yards, and that's not a great game for a tight end.
Yeah. Or yeah, he had that one game a couple games ago where it was like what 12 catches for like 98 yards, like so it, like it could be a short passes, he could get he could get 10 for 86 or whatever, like
Sure. I mean, that's a
uh
lot of yards. I mean,
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
lot of yards. I
yeah,
think I'm almost positive. I haven't checked. I'm just doing off the top of my head because we're just bringing it up. I'm almost positive I had Kelsey under in the San Fran game. And I think did one of these games, he didn't have anything in the fourth quarter. He did a lot. I don't know.
yeah,
I think that
yeah,
was what I had under. But
yeah,
the game, but I had such a good number. It was like I was like, I think I printed the number out and like slept with it. The number was so good, and it still lost. So it doesn't matter.
yeah,
It's only one game. I think a good thing is don't treat it as anything different. I'm not saying don't bet it, but search for the right numbers. Have an idea of what you think is going to happen because I'm giving you some of my true history, the ones that I've gotten correct. The one I got, which was crazy, the one that drives me probably the most crazy of all these games is the Panthers Patriots Super Bowl when the Jake Delhomme team that beat the Eagles and then played New England, and I had a really good number on New England. I mean, that line closed 7, but they were 6.5 early in the week. And I remember I gotten 6.5 and 6.5 and 6.5, and then 7. I bet it at 7. I bet it 7, and then for whatever reason, I can't remember the exact situation, but I'd gotten 7.5 juice. So I was a little overexposed. So I played back some Carolina just to so I wasn't, going too crazy. So, I got
sure,
a 7.5. But, and, that game was 29-22 with 6 minutes left.
yeah,
And I remember watching the game going, are you kidding me? If they make a stop here, I get everything. I get cherries and cheesecakes and everything. But that's not really what I was rooting for. I was rooting for was New England. And I had under. I mean, I had everything that I had focused on, everything that I had researched just pointed to under. So my entire narrative was under. I had under in every quarter. I had under for the game. I had all unders. And if you remember that game, nobody scored. They had the record for the Super Bowl for no score in the most amount of time. Nobody scored until I'm off the top of my head, 6 minutes, 5 minutes left in the second or something. But remember, nobody scored. Jake Delhomme was 0 of 9 or some shit. It was just, I remember watching it going, look at this guy. This is exactly what I thought. And they scored 24 points in the last 6 minutes of the first half. And if you look at the line, if you look at the box score, it's 0 first quarter, 0 third quarter. The second and fourth quarter, they scored all the points.
it's nuts.
And I thought I got hit with a tidal wave because not only did I lose New England bet, thank God I had a little bit on money line, but I think I lost every prop except for first quarter unders and third quarter unders. I think I lost every other one. It's almost like the New England team got tired. That's what it looked like. I remember watching the game. I was tired. I wasn't even moving. I was just drinking. I remember just watching him go, man, I'm tired watching this game. Look how tired Rodney Harrison looks. It's just, and when Ricky Prohl scored, I said, man, so it stands in my mind of I had what I thought to be the correct narrative, but it wasn't completely correct, and you got to be careful. I mean, I lost a lot in that Super Bowl, and I know I'm not the only one. There were a lot of smart people I found later, people much smarter than me, that said, "Oh, geez, I had I had 6 juiced. You know, they were like, "Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?" I had why? So I didn't maybe not feel as bad, but what the point of that is that maybe don't fall in love with your narrative either. You know, base it on your back roll. It's only one game. Play it and then move on. Especially if it's don't let the bias of a particular team get into your head. It hurts me a little bit that I'm in the Philadelphia region, so I almost think I have an anti-Eagles bias. I don't root against the team, but you can't believe how arrogant everybody's acting over here. I mean, it's from the news media on because they won a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so that was going to be another top. So let's kind of merge that into I guess we can. I don't know how many more topics we want to go over here, but you had mentioned.
Listen, make it 2 pods. Who cares?
No, you had mentioned that you had mentioned living in the area. This is in the past 20 years is the 3rd Super Bowl you guys have made it to, I think. If I'm not mistaken.
Oh, yeah.
So
the irony is in 2004 I was part-time in South Florida and I was in Vegas in that period of time. I was betting in Vegas and I was going back. I had a condo in Miami. And then for holidays, I would come back and see my family in the Philadelphia area. So the 2004 year stands out because 2003 and 2004, I was on a straight Eagles fade. I was fading them. I thought they were a fraudulent team. The 2003, not fraudulent offensively, but I just thought they had a ton of weaknesses defensively. And I'm still aggravated about the Mike Sherman Green Bay team. And I even blame Favre for that. I mean, Green Bay had the better team in the 2003 playoffs. And that's that famous 4th and 26, Freddie Mitchell bullshit, blah, 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 whatever. But guess what? What people don't remember is that Sherman had 4th and inches with Amon Green, and the Packers had over 200 yards rushing that game. They could not stop Amon Green, and this guy punts like a jerk off. And then Nebraska gives him a contract. It's like, I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm on a tangent, but I thank God I had him +4, and then we lost by 3. I don't know what the hell I would have did. But and then the next week I bet Carolina. So I was kind of on this kind of. If you remember I don't know if you remember, but 2004 was probably the worst year, maybe the worst year NFC ever had, and by far the worst year the NFC East ever had. And that's the year the Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2004. Yeah. They had a better team because Terrell Owens was really good. They replaced some people in the defense, but they still weren't as good as New England. But this area, when I was back in Philly, people were very apprehensive because they had just lost to Tampa in 2002 in the NFC Championship, and then they got just embarrassed by Carolina. I mean, there was a Carolina sequence where they ran 16 straight running plays, and they couldn't stop them. They didn't score. So when they made the Super Bowl, nobody was like, yeah, we're going to win. Everybody was like, yo, thank God we made it. And then we get this 2017 run, which was legitimately incredible. I mean, remember the Vikings were favored in the NFC Championship game here.
Yeah.
And remember, and for people that don't remember, Vikings went right down the field, made it 7-0. Yeah. And it's like the whole city went like what the fuck, kind of this kind of thing. And then, the wheels flew off of the Vikings, the bus, it was just like they couldn't do no right. It looked like Miguel Cotto fighting Pacquiao. where it's like he was in the fight for 3 rounds and then he got hit with like punches from like the 3rd level. It's just like everything everything just happened. But something's happened in the last 4 or 5 years where it's like they were like, yeah, we beat Brady, we beat the greatest of all time, to like, oh, Kansas City, who's Kansas City? Like, Mahomes, we beat Brady. Who's Mahomes?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's filtering from all walks. And the news media on down. It's like, I sent it to you because you're from Chicago. It's like when the Bears in '85. I remember that. That was supposed to be Bears Dolphins. The big rematch, Bears Dolphins. From Gary Fensick to Buddy Ryan, they were like, "Yo, we're ready for the Dolphins." They're the only ones that that Monday night game that the ball hit up in the air. Remember that play? You were hip in the air and they scored the touchdown. And it ended up being the deciding touchdown on that Monday night game. And the Bears players remember that. And Fensick says to this day, is we kept our bargain on the rematch. They didn't. You remember that?
I was only to be fair, I was only 2 at the,
listen,
at the time.
2
But
no,
but I've read about it. I mean, the details are a little fuzzy, but I do remember.
You're a Bears fan. That's no excuse at all. You should remember every.
I wasn't even. I'm a Uper. I was born in Michigan, so technically I was still in the UP at that time. So I didn't even. Chicago wasn't even I guess the UP is more the UP is actually more Green Bay, I think, than Detroit. To be honest, but
I'm still impressed if that's not the number 1 watched Monday Night Football game of all time, I think it's still in the top 2.
Yeah,
Monday Night Football is wilted down. There's a zillion channels, but I'm telling you, everybody watched that game. I mean, they couldn't have asked for a better game. And Marino played great. Bears played great. And the deciding game was this ball to up in the air. Clayton caught, but overall point being is it was a letdown. Like, oh, wait a minute, Bears are playing this shitty team, and they're favored by 11 or 10.5. The Eagles fans are acting like they're favored by 10.5. And again, it's anecdotal. I haven't talked to everybody in this, but it's filtering from the team, from Lure. It's filtering from Seth Joyner's a show here. I mean, he's acting like Kansas City sucks. I'm worried that they're going to lose a close game. They're going to burn the city down. So I'm making sure that I'm near Atlantic City. or worse, and the controversial call cost the game. This is going to be crazy. But that's not why I bring it up. I just bring it up because I think it's the arrogance of winning in 2017 and then this team. It's kind of like they're not giving Kansas City the respect. Now, they might still win, they might still win it, and they could win big. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it could look like the Tampa Kansas City game that had, that disheveled offensive line. I'm not sure. But this Kansas City team, unless I'm completely off, this Kansas City's wrong. It's the whole game, Brian, if you think about it, is about this guy's ankle.
Yeah.
Which is kind of shitty for your sport, if you think about it. Should we wait? I don't know how to fix it. Do you wait 3 weeks? Like, I don't know what you do.
No,
I don't know what you do.
That's unfortunately the nature of the sport.
This has come up a few times in different conversations through Twitter, through email. Like, what's the future going to look like? I mean, the NFL wants to move to 18 games. Are we going to see platoon quarterbacks? Are we going to see, somebody's going to have to think outside the box because, we were this close to having a third-string quarterback in the NFC Championship game and a second-string quarterback in the AFC Championship game. Does anybody want to see that?
I mean, like as a Niners fan, once like I've never been the biggest Jimmy G fan. I appreciate what he's done, but I don't. He's not the reason why we've been as successful as we have been. But that's besides the point. I thought there was going to be a bigger drop off between him and Purdy, and there wasn't. So that was the thing that surprised me. So yeah, it would have been like historical for a third string slash rookie slash last pick of the draft to make the Super Bowl. But I don't even know, like, as a Niners fan, I don't even know if we would have won if he stayed healthy. We were underdogs. That's the thing that most of the people that I follow on Niners Twitter are failing to mention is that we were underdogs and we weren't
Brian,
favored to
I'm
win.
not even a San Fran fan. I played the future for San Fran the day after they lost in Denver, literally the next morning.
Okay.
I said, this is kind of a fluke. I think this is the best team in the NFC, and they're going to show it. And, I mean, I leaned into that future. I leaned into the NFC future, and then I played it for a flyer on the Super Bowl, and then I said, fuck it. If I'm going to play it, I'm going to play it. I played it probably more than I've ever played any future before. And, I mean, it got to the point where I had to almost sell the equity back on my ticket for the championship games. I was kind of overexposed. I said, oh, shit, what if they lose here?
Yeah,
I even considered, what if Purdy gets hurt? Who's the backup? Steve Young? Like, who? Gerback? Like, who comes in? I don't even know who plays in this situation. And, I played back some Eagles, but I do believe, I still believe that San Fran was the best NFC team. We'll never know. But I don't want to disrespect the Eagles also, though, because I do think that game, even if Garoppolo plays, is probably a nip-and-tuck game, 3 points either way. And you know what's getting lost in this whole handicapping of this game? Early in the season, you said you're a Niner fan, right?
Yeah.
I bet the Niners at home against the Chiefs. I got a really good number. And that game, they played great for about 17 minutes. And then all of a sudden, well, you know what happened.
Yeah, that was. I remember, like, I don't have like the NFL package or anything, but I think that might have been on CBS or something, or I don't know, Fox. I don't remember. But
let's put it this way: they got a phone.
Yeah.
I went to the bathroom. I came out of the bathroom. They were down 2 touchdowns. I was like, "What the hell happened?" And my friend said, "What do you mean? What the hell happened? Mahomes happened. It's like like he blinked. It was like Marino-ish. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And do you notice that nobody's bringing that game up? That's an elite defense. Everybody was healthy.
Yeah.
And they played well. And it wasn't with Purdy.
Yeah, and actually, the funny thing is that was a game that Purdy actually got some garbage time in at the end
Because they were getting killed.
Yeah. That's the thing that. Yeah.
I was so obsessed with that game. The next day, I was reading San Francisco newspapers and ESPN quotes to see what the defense had to say about that. The guys on this, which I think is an elite defense. Like, what was their excuse? The general consensus was like, holy shit, it's Patrick Mahomes. That right there tells you why he's MVP. I heard what somebody said earlier, Mahomes hasn't played against a really good defense. I don't know what season you're watching, but it's almost like that game, he was so good in that game. Kansas City was so good. It's almost like people forgot about it.
Yeah. And yeah, Kansas City really only has the one bad loss against Indy this year, so it's not like they lost to Cincy, they lost to Buffalo, um,
That's
and
it.
obviously, and then Philly lost 2 games without Hurts, so they have that to hang their hats on.
Yeah,
But
that
um,
don't count. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
so
but you know what? You know what counts in the Hertz games is you were playing a very good offense, and what did you do? So we could play that game
yeah,
obviously all
you
day.
could play that. You could play that both ways.
Yeah. I think I put on the internet I put on Twitter some of the historical years and some of the historical matchups that I remember, and and then I went back and just was reading some of the stuff that I kind of remembered, and some details that I may not have remembered, and you realize that some of these teams, they back when there was a true elite teams, because now the NFL really wants parity. This is why I de-emphasize strength of schedule.
Yeah,
Somebody says, "Oh, the Eagles haven't played anybody." Well, there's no real elite team. There's no Steelers. There's no Cowboys. There's no Redskins. Gibbs, Landry, Johnson, Walsh. There's when they were ahead of everybody, and they were elite teams. They were the elite teams, and then it was kind of the middle teams, and you had a couple teams that were absolute garbage. Now it's like you have some garbage teams, and then everybody seems to be kind of in the middle. The NFL really wanted that. They wanted this kind of parity, and I recognized that for a long time ago. I would say 15, 16 years ago, and I how you can take advantage of that is I took advantage of that with the next year's unders. I didn't lose a year in under wins by simply playing against certain teams that made the playoffs the year before, because they would overemphasize them. And I remember a few years you could blindly play anybody that was in the playoffs and you wouldn't lose money, depending on what number you got. Case in point, again, I don't want to be anecdotal, but it's like the year after Tampa won with Brady, everybody was high. The next year, I mean, they were putting 12 and a halves out there, 12s, 11 and a half, and there was no way. As you know, I mean, it's pretty. I don't want to say it's common knowledge. It's common to the people that bet futures. But if you add up all the totals, it wins. There's more wins than it's possible.
yeah, yeah,
It's almost funny. Like, I don't want to say that to too many people, but most people don't give a shit. They're like, I don't play it anyway. Right? Whatever. But that alone should tell you the fact that it's profitable to tell you that the league purposely wanted this situation that you have. So that's why I kind of de-emphasize, again, like strength of schedule. And it makes it a little bit easier to say, well, when people say it's actually in the Eagles' favor, when they would say, well, who have they played? Well, they played everybody who was in your schedule. They did get a little bit lucky in the playoffs because you don't want to play. Who would you rather play, Dallas or the Giants? If Minnesota wins the game, Minnesota goes to San Francisco, and Dallas goes to Philadelphia, and the playoff could look very different. But I can't penalize the Eagles for that. It's going to be an interesting game. I mean, the line's 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and nothing's changed. I mean, if we can get a game that's 30, it's 27 all with 4 minutes left. Is anybody complaining? I'm not even going to complain. I don't give a shit who wins. I can get that. We want some drama. We don't want. Nobody wants Chargers, Niners 94. right?
No, I mean, I didn't mind it as a Niners fan. That was, I mean, that
Oh
was
yeah,
around,
that's right. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I
But
apologize.
no,
Wrong
no,
example.
but no, no. I mean, you know,
Wrong
every Niners playoff game that I've experienced in the past 10 years, at least in the later rounds, has always had some drama. So that was one of the few drama-free games in my lifetime, and I was only 11 for that, or 12, I don't know. But so I don't. Yeah, that's the last like drama-free Niners like important game that I can
Well, you've had
remember.
you've had an
Um,
unbelievable run. Come on, I have to
yeah,
remind people that are of a certain age that Jerry Rice didn't play on the 81 and 84 team.
yeah.
People are like, oh yeah, actually, it's a good trivia question. Somebody just hit me with how many Super Bowls did Walsh, Montana, and Rice play together?
This is one, right?
That's it, just one. A lot of people
Yeah,
don't get it
because
right.
Seifert was the last coach
In '89,
in the '80s.
and Rice isn't on
So
the '81 and '84 team. It's a great
yeah,
question.
so yeah, that would be um, yeah. I kind of forget about that too, to be honest.
Everybody does.
Um,
It's not. If you followed the '80s, if you grew up, Rice was so prevalent on those teams. Walsh was so prevalent. Montana. So you forget that '84 was Freddie Solomon and Dwight Clark. It was a different team,
yeah,
and that team was 17-1, as you know, without Rice.
yep, yeah. So I mean, yeah, he obviously helped. I mean, there's no question about that.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
yeah,
he was a little
but
bit of a help.
but yeah,
Right.
but yeah, it just it's it was the '80s version of Belichick and Brady, with Walsh and Montana. So
That's true. That's true.
obviously not as not as long standing, but they had the kind of relationship. I feel like just reading about it. Like I don't know that for certain, but that's just based on
Well,
reading about
it's
it.
funny you bring that up. When people criticize, they're like, "Oh, Belichick didn't win." I listen to Mad Dog Radio sometimes when I want to get stomach aches. So I listen on Sirius when I'm driving, and they brought up they were killing Belichick for not winning in Cleveland. Do you know Cleveland won 11-5 and made the playoffs one year with no quarterback basically? Like how are you going to kill the guy for going 11-5?
Was that Kozar's last year? Or
They
was that the
cut
year they
those
cut?
off.
Oh, that
They
was the
cut
year they
those.
cut Kozar.
They
Yeah.
cut him,
Okay.
and he had an elite defense, and they were a good team. They had
Yeah.
the two cornerbacks who when I was a kid, I was obsessed. Hanford Dixon, and they should be, if they're not in the Hall of Fame, they both should be in the Hall of Fame. They're elite defense, and the opening round when they were 11-5, they played the Steelers, who were basically the exact same team as them, but a little bit better. Like you're going to blame Belichick for that, and then people forget the year Brady got hurt. They went 11-5 and didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like I tell people that they're like, no. I'm like, well, all right, it's Siri. Don't listen to me. They won 11 games. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like it was the Patriots version of the Jordan of the Pippen led Bulls going to the conference semis or
Oh,
whatever
don't
with
get
the
me started on that too,
yeah.
please.
So
They,
yeah, well, dating myself there, but yeah, one topic I wanted to get in
yes,
before
yes.
I know you wanted to talk about Bet Bash a little bit, I think.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, let's just kind of end with discussing on that a little bit because you had gone last year and I think this is gonna be the third or fourth year they're doing it this upcoming
Well,
year.
I think
Um,
they had the first year in North Jersey, and
okay,
because I think that was easy for I don't want to speak for Spank, but I think it was easy for him to set it up because he knew people in that area and set it up. I thought it would have been better suited if he had it in Atlantic City. Of course, I'm self-serving because I would have
sure,
went to Atlantic City.
yeah,
But I also think it conflicted with something I had to do. But I think it was a small thing in the first year. So the second one, I had planned to go simply because I wanted. There were certain people that had been I knew from Twitter. Like they DM'd me. We shared games. We shared different ideas on certain things. It was a good networking thing. And then what happened to me personally had opened it up where I was like, you know what, what I have to lose. I'm not gonna. Your head's in a different place. You say, you know what, let me go meet some people, and you know, I've been on Twitter for, I don't know, 10, 11 years, and I've been critical about a lot of things and a lot of people, and some people don't like criticism about anything, and it becomes an ad hominem. Is that the fallacy? I'm not sure. I get confused with straw man and ad hominem. I think ad hominem is when you attack the person and not the point. And I have had a lot of that. If I attacked anybody, I don't say attack, but if I had said, hey, listen, if I had asked questions about things that people were selling or doing or whatever, all of a sudden it turned into a thing, well, who are you? What do you have? How much money? It turned into this kind of a weird, attack on me. And
Yeah.
I realized, I expected kind of some blowback, but I didn't expect people to, well, I have to bring my resume up to criticize you. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of my criticisms were fair. Some were maybe worse than others, but I think I'm undefeated on Twitter, to tell you the truth. I don't think I've lost an argument yet. And if anybody wanted to debate in the forum, I'm more than happy to debate, because if you're going to turn it on me to say, oh, well, who are you in this community? Well, here's who I am. I haven't, in 11 years, what have I done? I haven't sold anything, and I've had opportunities to sell, to do a lot of different things. I haven't, because I don't know how to do anything else but bet, to tell you the truth. And so it was part where I wanted to say, you know what, you got something off your chest, I'm going to go. And then the other part was a friendly thing. There were some people that I really wanted to meet, because there were people that thought outside the box. I thought Jason Spreadapita thought he had a lot of ideas on futures that I had thought about, but it seemed like he was even doing better than that. There was a couple, there's other people that have contacts with Joey Isaacs and a network of their people where, they might know a couple things that you don't, or they might think it along the same way. So I said, you know what? It's just me. Who cares? I'm going to go and see what happens. And you're not really sharing an edge that can hurt you. It's almost like everybody has the same kind of, anybody who's in kind of the know kind of has that same kind of attitude. Like, hey, listen, if I tell you something, keep between us, whatever, that kind of thing. And I would never disrespect that. So I thought overall it was good. I know a lot of the backgrounds, or I've heard of some of the backgrounds of some of the people. I know some of the criticisms of even Smacky, who ran it, and criticisms of some of the other people who run successful betting groups now. And I was very lenient on those things. I didn't want to get involved and critique people of things that I didn't know, if that makes any sense. So sure. I kind of went with the open thing, and my idea was, if you're willing to talk to me, I'm most likely older than you, and let's go get something to drink and something to eat and hang out. That was my attitude. And I don't know if you've ever spoke on Twitter to Alfonso Giron, who does a lot of information tweets about the industry. And
Yeah.
I follow him for that, so I don't have to go search, to see what court case is going on in Costa Rica or whatever. He tweets it out. I follow it. I save it. And so he pointed him out. I met him, and he followed me. He goes, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
I thought you'd have a beard. He thought I was like some old douche. But, but I was surprised that he actually followed me. Like, meanwhile, I'm following him for a story. So it turned out to be much better than I thought. There were a lot of decent people there, and like I wanted to talk to Gil. Actually, I wanted to talk to Gil Alexander because we're around the same age. I've been critical of his past, but I've also been complimentary to him. I think I've said early on that he's basically, I could tell he's going to end up being the face of like sports gambling for a lot of people for the public. And I thought, I don't know if he realized that. And I saw that, and I think with that comes, a certain amount of responsibility. But instead, it turned out to be this kind of thing of, well, who are you to criticize me? So I kind of went to BetBash and said, well, here's who I am. Here's what I've done, and here's who I haven't sold to anybody, and here's what I've made, and I'm still around. So that kind of thing. And unfortunately, it's just, I don't think I didn't get to speak to everybody. I think it's just because the time was short. But it is Vegas, and I had a good time. I mean, I did. I did. And and I wish you could have gone, and I wish there was a few other people that had texted me, so I would have went. And, I get drunk. I pay for a lot of stuff. Some a good time.
Yeah, I think but before we started recording this, I was mentioning to you, I don't remember what was going on, but I do remember that I got COVID right around that time.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have worked out. Anyways, it was just it was like it was during March Madness, I remember. Um, and
Well, that's okay.
it was.
Listen, the next
Yeah,
Bash, people aren't too happy that it's going to be in August, but I get why Spanky is running it in August because he's doing it circa, and it's going to be. You can sign up for the contest. You can, if you're out of state, you can find, a person. It's actually a smart time. I don't want to be in Vegas in August either, but I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hot, but I'm not going outside. I'm going inside.
That timing does make that timing does make sense.
It does, except for that, which is good. So it fits into my thing because, I'm sure I'll meet a couple people. Hey, you want to partner up for this Circa Gold or whatever, or I'll do it on my own or whatever, and I'm okay with it. I mean, the only other time they would have it would probably be March Madness, maybe, and it probably was too much to put together because from what I'm hearing, he's going to try to have some big sports names there that may not have a gambling background. So I guess the idea of the marketing from this is going to be over the next few years, everyone's going to be this is going to be entrenched completely. What we've talked about in the last, 6, 7, 8 years, which was like the red light district of sports, is going to be out front and center, and you might see some prominent people. You might see Scott Van Pelt at these things, regardless of what you feel about him or his peers. They start showing up at the BetBash. It makes it a big deal.
Yeah. Now, speaking of conferences, did you ever attend any of the Sloan conferences?
Well, early on, I was a big Sloan fan back in 2007, 2008. Right around, I was like, oh, I really want to go. And the tickets were inexpensive. So I remember the one year I planned to go, there was a conflict, and they streamed it. They streamed the important parts of it, the sports gambling, and I remember it was streamed in the morning, and I remember I was like, shit, I really want to go to this, and I watched it, and that was the one. It was the one where they had a symposium where Chad Millman was there, and he brought a tout with him, and he brought a couple other people. It was like this dais of like, and I think Jeff Ma was on the day. I don't know. It was an absolute shit show. I was like, what the hell am I watching? And Twitter was like having a meltdown. Like Seville was like just tossing grenades onto the thing. Like, who the hell is this guy? So it killed Sloan for me. It killed it. I was like, what would I go to this for? Like, this has no me. Like, what the, outside of me trying to get in a job, which I wasn't trying to do. I guess it would have been good for networking, but it's like, I hate to blame it all on Millman, but I'm blaming it all on Millman. Like, he put this guy, I don't know what the hell he was thinking, but it killed Sloan completely for me. Now,
well, I heard the ticket prices got insane with that too. So,
and it's like I almost felt bad for the guy that they brought because they kind of put him on a microscope. So it's like if you put a guy up on stage, he might have been a smart guy, and they put him on stage and they kind of just hammered. But I'm not feeling sorry for that guy. He knew it, like, prepare.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But for me personally, I was like, why would I go to this? What the fuck is it? I don't want to go to this thing. Well, now, I realized a couple years later that, there were some people that went. It was smart, and then they priced everybody out. Now, I think the year before, what I'm talking about was the year they had, what's the name? Harlabob or whatever his name is. They had him on with one of the guys who ran on the bookmaker, and I saw that live, but I wasn't going to that one. I didn't even have heard of Sloan before that.
Yeah.
And that was a testy one. But I don't think that back and forth hurt Sloan. I don't think it hurt that. That made it sexier. Like, ooh, they're really having serious debates about bookmaker and better and what is there limits for serious guys? Like, it was an interesting. The next year, I just was like, what is this? Get out of here. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, does Bet Bash kind of take the place?
The only reason I brought that up was because that was the only other like conference that I could remember where like betting people went to it. So like I didn't know if you had experience going there and could compare it to to Bet Bash.
I mean, all honesty, I had read Bringing Down the House when it first came out, and I was aware who Jeff Ma was, and I wanted to go to Sloan to talk to him because there was a time in the early 2000s where I did my own. It was right when I was living in Miami and going back and forth to Vegas. In my downtime, I was waiting for games that I bet to end. I was playing blackjack, and I wanted to talk to somebody about who had been. I joined BJ.com. I was part of like the Black forums, and you had to pay to get on it, and people talk about their trips and all. So I knew that Jeff Ma had been, if you're going to talk about, a well-known person who had been in that world, that was the main, and the fact that he was hosting something having to do with sports betting was kind of like a perfect thing. I wanted to go to speak to him. And then the Millman thing kind of screwed everything up, and then I stopped playing blackjack because it changed a lot of the rules, and it wasn't as important at the time, and then I focused more on on sports fans. But that was kind of like my context, right or wrong for it. But overall, if you ask me about that, I saw some tweets on there that was negative about Spanky, about he's making money from. I don't give. I got to tell you the truth. I don't give a shit if he makes money off of it. I really don't. If I like a sandwich and you're making me a sandwich, Brian, I go to your house and you would charge me $5 and the sandwich really good, I give you $6 for it. It's just kind of how I feel about certain things. If I go and I think it's worthwhile, I'll pay. If you charge me $60, I might not go. You know what I mean? I think he does a good thing. And a lot of these things aren't done for this isn't a charity. It's a networking symposium that takes. If anybody's to organize anything, if you organize a Super Bowl party, it takes a lot of planning.
Yeah.
And but I thought it was worthwhile. I mean, think about it. If you meet one or two people that have an edge in something, and you can partner up, it's worth going.
Sure.
That's how I treat it.
Yeah.
That long and short, that's 100% how I treat it. That's how I feel. Do you have anything negative?
No, I don't.
I feel we've been too positive.
No,
I feel like I have to say some bad things about something. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the whole reason why that was a topic, is because I didn't know, like, entering when you went there, like if you had like preconceived notions about people that were like wrong, like either positive that turned into negative or negative that turned into positive, like.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Like there was different groups of people, and I went up to different people and said, hey, like I went up to Rufus and told him who I was, and he kind of laughed, like what, Rob Pizzola. I just said, hey, listen, and to tell you the truth, in 10 years, I can't remember who I critiqued or at what point I critiqued them or whatever. But there's a lot of this there's a reason why people are semi-anonymous. And I don't know why, like laymen don't get it. And people say, oh, well, okay, what are they going to ban you from the casino? Well, listen, I have a lot of PPHs. If they don't know who, I've been asking bets, Brian, for 20 years. If you start playing stuff that moves, that the line moves that way, you got to be sure to throw in some, neutral EV bets or some dog shit. Or I mean, sometimes I have to throw in dog shit so they think you're a sucker. I mean, this isn't unplanned. You know what I mean? I mean, there was a bookie in this area that profiled bettors. And he was good. He was an excellent PPH, had excellent lines. They basically were a crisp mirror. And the guy used to have poker games. I'm telling you, I used to go to the poker game and play like a drunk sailor because I don't want them to know. The last thing I need to know is these guys, is to think that I have an act. You understand what I mean? So,
sure.
You're anonymous, you're critiquing. So my response to that is bring up one thing that I used at an enemy to protect myself over the criticism. It's never happened, ever. And that's another reason why I went to Bet Bash. You got something to get off your chest. Listen, if anybody has a problem now, I'm going to be there in August. You got something to get off your chest, meet me there. I'll talk about it.
Sure.
I've been critical of VSiN for a long time, a while, because I thought that VSiN, again, it's my stupidity, but I was a fan of VSiN, not because I wasn't thinking of it from a business point of view. I was thinking of it from a fan point of view. And I thought, you know what, there's so much shit radio out there. I mean, you're in Chicago, you're in the big market. Between Jay Moriarty and those guys, it's like the same crap over and over again. You probably have White Sox versus Cubs crap. I mean, it's tiresome. And I thought, ooh, here's a station. It's basically become a de facto radio station to talk about sports gambling. It doesn't have to be 24 hours.
Yeah.
Put on infomercials after 10.
Sure.
And I didn't see the forest from the trees. I didn't see where they were headed. They were headed towards, bringing touts on, bringing on. I don't say touts. It's not like they brought Ed from Raz on. They were bringing on guys that were just liars about bullshit,
Yeah.
And it kind of devolved into this thing where I was like, shit, I thought I was this target market, and I'm not. The target market is the moron who's telling me that this is the best Eagles team ever. So I kind of, if you want to say, hey, you took it a little too personal, you'd be right. Yeah, but I had high hopes. I listened to, the first day that station was on, they had Al Bernstein on. And I'm like, oh, Al Bernstein. I'm a big boxer fan. He goes, I don't really know about that. I was like, the fuck is Al Bernstein doing on a station for? You know what I mean? So if I've been overly critical of the station, it's because I give a shit.
Sure.
And they should respect that somebody actually gives a shit enough to actually say something about it. Because if I didn't care about, I wouldn't say anything. And instead, I got kind of a backlash of this kind of thing where, what have you done to criticize this? Yeah. Well, that's not the case. That's not the case. I might be part of your demographic you're trying to sell to.
Yeah, you realize once you give that kind of critique, you realize the people that are in it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons. So
I did realize two things though. If criticism, constructive criticism, sometimes people don't separate, but it does like people take notice. I mean, somebody DM'd me and they were like giving me shit about. I said, listen, I wasn't put on the earth to be your best friend. You know what I mean? This is what I see. You tell me where I'm wrong. Don't turn this into, what have you done? I've been betting since 1988. Don't tell me you blew into this thing, in 2007, and you're gonna tell me what's right and what's not.
Yeah.
I do want to make a distinction though, Brian. I've never been against people. It's gonna sound weird. I can't critique fairly right angle sports. I can't say, those guys are pieces of shit. I can't say that, because if you're gonna sell your edge, that's the way you really should do it. And we spoke all before we started taping. Billy Waters is coming out with a book. I haven't read the book. Armand Catane wrote the book. And if there's anybody in this globe that is respected, Armand Catane's the right guy to write this book. I've read probably everything the guy's written. But you got the context of Billy Waters, when he created his group, he took money for those picks. I don't want to say he was a tout, but if you got that group's picks, and they said, what kind of bet are you? I bet 500 games. And those games won, they wanted you to pay for them.
Yeah.
So that's the truth. Anybody comes around, like anybody who was betting in 2007, they don't know anything about what happened in the 90s. This is the truth. The agents told you. If the games went 4-10, they never said shit to you. But if they went 10-4, they were, listen, by our calculation, you got to give me $600. You didn't give him $600. You didn't get his games. You didn't get that group's games after that. So I get it. Can you scale? The question is, can you scale selling picks? I can't answer that question, but I can answer if you're deleting picks or if you're front running your customers. And if I ask, hey, listen, how's this going down? You can't attack me. I might be your customer. Like, how are you going to attack me? And I'll have that conversation with anybody. And if anybody wants to, I'm getting this. I don't know if you followed the last couple months. I'm getting backlash of like, well, what do you got? Listen, I'll bring my W-2. I'll bring whatever you want, to say, listen, I'm allowed to ask these questions. You should want these questions. Think about it in any other industry, the industry you work in. If this has become legal, this is a legal financial, that's how they're going to look at this eventually. Once this became legal, this isn't, I said before, the red light district, this isn't underground anymore.
Yeah.
This is legal. This can be construed as you giving financial advice. Are they going to say that if you're giving advice on what people should bet, do you have a fiduciary responsibility to not delete your plays, to not bet ahead of your other stuff? All this is going to, it should come out. Like, I mean, am I wrong? I mean, you're not a babe in the woods. I mean, you know how this kind of works.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely responsibility that people should have, but they don't. It's they don't want to expose themselves for what they really are a lot of times. So.
And that's fine. People can skirt around whatever they want, but don't. But if I call you on it, you can't say, "Oh, well, what have you done?" Oh, listen, I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me because I'm asking you. And the distinction of PASPA falling is important because pre-PASPA, I was very critical of pregame and wager talk. And I've had conversations with Cheetah, who sold picks at wager talk, and I thought in certain markets he had an edge. And I'm like, well, what the hell are you working wager talk? He's working wager. He was making more money. And I get it, okay. But he never said a bad word like, oh, you're an asshole for asking. No, he was just like, oh, I get why you're asking. This is what happened. It's bad for marketing if I show a year of plays. Okay, great. And that's why he left. But free PASPA, my problem with those was that ESPN was doing the marketing for them.
Yeah.
So you were expanding and a lot of my critique from 2013, 2014 is like, why are they using those guys as a go-to? Like, how lazy could you be? Do your own work. Since legalization has happened, the entire thing has changed. Now all the big media people are in on it. Now, in a sense, they're the touts.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the ones. Yeah, they're the ones you can't critique, or you'll get blocked, or they'll,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you happen to. I know you've been working on. I don't know if you have. They had Jeff Bond, Rufus Peabody had on their pod. Had Jason McIntyre on their pod.
Yeah, I've gotten blocked. Yeah, I got blocked by him.
Well, everybody,
yeah.
Jason McIntyre blocked everybody.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you listen to the pod, but I have to grudgingly say that McIntyre was pretty good on the pod. He defended himself like he was like he was like Whitaker against Chavez. He was dodging, he was dodging everything, and his defense was, I'm not in that game. I'm not in the same game as what you guys think I'm in. I'm in the game of engagement. And engagement, I get to go to my bosses and say, look, here's how many people clicked on the site.
Yeah.
And based on that, I get raises. I get to get Colin Coward's coffee and all the other crap. I get all the other incentives. My key card works, all that shit. So he's not insensitized to, say anything that's correct about sports gambling. And he was very honest and open about it. And he made no apologies for it. Matter of fact, he said, listen, you think I'm bad? I don't inform. Look at Pat McAfee. Both points are valid. It's like, we're not in that game. It made me think about it. I said, he's admitting that he knows what he's talking about, but he's also admitting it doesn't matter. That's not what he's getting paid on.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like thinking back to like when I first started doing this podcast, and like I'm not. I was like, I'm not. I was like one of the first like to be doing this, and now it's like so
Sure.
oversaturated with crap, and like even though I can't like I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to go I wouldn't want to be that kind of person that like did that stuff for just clicks or whatever. Like and I mean, everyone has their own reasons for doing things. I'm just as you were talking about that, I started thinking about like when I first started this, and like and I still don't think there's not a lot of people that do this kind of podcast where it's not about necessarily the bets, but like the stuff behind it or that goes into it, like um and you bringing up McIntyre, just yeah, just like it just discourages me, like because that's just like where everything's headed, and that's the content that people tend to want. So it's like I'm not fighting it. I'm not gonna you know if that's what people want, that's what people want. It's just like
Well,
it's just
there's two sides to it. I mean, I think it's still fun to make fun of him and be snarky about it. It's almost like it reminds me, and it reminds me of the roast of Larry the Cable Guy, where Greg Girardo came out and he was just ripping him, and he was like, "How are you so popular?" And he yelled at him.
yeah,
He's like,
yeah,
he's so
yeah,
aggravated. He's like, but like it's funny. It's a
yeah,
roast, but he's like, "I'm so much better than you."
yeah,
What the fuck? How do you make him? But that's the market. He made no apologies for it. The market is wreck bettors. Do you have a responsibility to say correct stuff or to invest your time into say slightly correct stuff? Now, I'm the kind of person, if I got involved in something, I'd want to be able to, well, what don't I know, But some people aren't like that. And the guy's making money, and he makes no apologies. As long as he doesn't call himself an expert. When he calls himself an expert, then he's leading himself out to get his head sliced off. But if he's just saying, "Hey, this is what I do," but okay, and he's blocked everybody, so nobody really cares what, I don't care what he says. It's once since he blocked me. But he blocks everybody. So it's an interesting topic, because what's happened since PASPA is been passed is you have media touts, guys that are now, their clout is now because they're part of the media. And I think like somebody at Bet Bash, I don't know if I should say who it is or not. Maybe I should. I don't.
You don't need to.
Maybe I don't care. I don't know. He wasn't rude. He was just like, "Yeah, I don't get why you're anonymous." I said, "Well, I don't, I don't have a cool name like you. Like, what do you want me to do?" I didn't get on. I got on Twitter for really for the networking and to be snarky about this shit of people that don't know. I figured I have a large background, a deep background, and people that are pretending they don't have that same background, I should be snarky to them. But, you're talking 2010 or 2011 or whatever. I said, this wasn't ever intentional. I said, I've never used my identity to critique somebody else and hide behind that. And they were like, "Oh, okay," kind of. They didn't like it. So I'm thinking, like, why would he be that aggravated? But then I realized, I think I critiqued the show at some point. Well, he should have said that. He should have said, "Listen, I didn't like what you said about the show. Let's have a conversation. But here's what I don't like about it." And then he could say, like Cheetah told me. Cheetah told me, he said, "Listen, some of the producers don't let you say that. They don't let you say that." Yeah. And then this leads to where Siegel's got a point. You can't do any of this stuff without being phone. Because their line is very hard. It's very straight down the middle. There's no gray. It's either black or white. Sex is the same way. You're either better or you can't have the money and the glory.
Yep.
it's very difficult to have both. You can't have this TV show and then give your edge away, and then so I mean I get it. I get that.
Yep.
Does that mean you're going to Bet Bash or no? Did I sell you on that?
Oh, well, actually, I don't even.
Let's put this way. You know Jeffrey Benson. You met him.
I mean,
He was there.
I mean, through I mean, I met him like I haven't met him in person. I did.
I mean, he was next to me, and I didn't introduce myself because people were talking to him and all, and I just figured, yeah, I'll see him the next time. But Circa is a great place. I can't say anything bad about Circa.
Yeah, the few friends that I had a couple friends go to Vegas or are going to Vegas the next month or just were there, and I mentioned going to Circa. I didn't mention you know why. I just said I was like, oh, this is a great. I mean, I went to the book like back in 2021. It's a great book. I mean, I didn't get a chance to bet at it, but just the respect that it has in the community and you know the money that they're willing to take, and let me just be very clear, because I don't even bet anywhere close to the amount of money that people are betting there. Like my biggest bet ever in my life is $500, and I'm very clear about that. I'm not a big better, so
Well,
but
the amount of betting, I don't think, like, somebody just got over the guy from who I met at Bet Bash, Plus TV Analytics. They got on him because he's suing Ontario because they kept his money, basically. Kept his futures. They lied. That's a whole nother pod of the regulators, and they're not doing their jobs and all that. And then somebody chimed in. I listen, it's Twitter. People are going to be snarky about shit. I think you should be able to take anything that makes sense, and come back. They're like, oh, he exposed himself for only betting 50 hours on certain futures. So I chimed in and stuck up for him a little bit and said, you know what? How do you know that's not what that was his limit?
yeah,
You know what I mean? A few years back, 4 or 5 years ago, I think there was a guy who was part of a betting group. He called himself Quant something, I don't know. And he was all over me on Twitter. He was like, "Hey, dude, you bet 500 a game," or whatever he was saying. I was like, "Well, I do bet 500, but I bet 500 different places." So maybe think that for Plus TV, like Hattie, some places limit you like that. That's a big deal. I think if you have a bankroll that allows you to bet 2,000, you might not want to bet 2,000 at one place. I mean, it's a nuanced strategy of masking bets is an underrated thing for people that bet. I don't know how. Like I'm blown away that like Rufus played golf with like Jay Cornigan. I'm like, how many places is this guy be able to bet? He's all over the place. People know who he is.
yeah.
But you know what I mean? Just that kind of thing. When you're prominent, well known, I think it can work. It could work in your favor, but it could also work against your favor. So I would never be against critiquing somebody for their amount of their bet. There was one year, Brian, I think I said it on your other pods, where I know I had an edge in college basketball, and I didn't have the money at the time to commit to it. So I wrote every bet down like I was really betting it, just to test the whole thing. So I had a spreadsheet of every fucking game, like I was betting it every game, because I figured if I did have an edge, that edge would still be there the next year when I had more money. So think about that rationale that you have to do. That I was so committed to it. I said, you know how many games? It was like 700 games, and I had some that had higher edge than others, but And I marked it, and they were all over 55%. And I said, wow. I said, there's something there. There's something there that's still there, hopefully, for next year. Nobody else has figured it out. And so, should I bet 25 hours a game? I just didn't think the need was there for that. Where, so I'm not going to come. Somebody's bankroll might be $4,000, and they might have a good edge, and they might be betting 80 hours a game. I mean, it's rare, but you see my point.
Yeah, and I personally don't get involved in those conversations. Like, I read them, and I have my metaphorical popcorn while I'm reading some of the back and forths between people, but I
Well, you
don't.
know
I
why it comes
Yeah,
up. It comes
yeah,
up. It comes up because it's like people follow the money. Are you a
yeah,
big bettor, or
yeah,
do you? Well, people don't wake up and bet 5 times a game. People don't wake up like that. One of the reasons I was a big proponent for people that are selling games, people like prominent people like Mark Lawrence, is because people start out as rec bettors. And I said before, I said, I rate rec bettors as, I have a rating that I think casinos do the same thing, but I have a rating of there's rec bettors, and then there's rec plus, and then you can call people rounders or however you want, and then there's pros. So
yeah,
people say, oh, pros are only 1%. Well, yeah, they're 1%. What's his name that won the gold? Favre, 444. Yeah, I know he's part of a group. They're the 1%. But you know what? There's a way to make money. You don't need to be in that 1%. You know what I mean? You let me do super pro. There's people that are rounders that make money, and then there's rec plus people that like to bet. Maybe they're betting $50 a game or $100 a game. They don't want to get killed. It's no different than the person that goes to Atlantic City maybe once every couple months, and he doesn't want to get absolutely raped in blackjack. So somebody teaches him how to play basic blackjack. You know what I mean? And then he
sure,
gets some comp points. He gets to stay in the room. He wins a few times. There's a lot of guys going to be a long-time loser. Well, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he'll. In the long term, it goes to infinity. You
sure,
know what I mean? Like, and then there's rec bettors who there's no hope for. So I tend to think of things in terms of that, where people think, oh, well, you're either a pro or a rec bettor. Those aren't the only two categories here.
yeah,
And lots of people started out as rec bettors. Listen, I started out, the only reason I even had any success is because I looked at the peers I had, and everybody lost because they were doing nothing but playing favorites and overs.
yeah,
In the 80s and 90s, you could make a little bit of a profit by just saying, you know what, I'm not going to play every damn favorite and every over, and I'm not going to play dogs more than 10. But
yeah,
there was a profitable thing in the 90s. You just did it.
yeah,
Now, if you paid $50 a game, at the end of the year, with the NFL season's too short, maybe you had 400 hours. I don't know, but at least you didn't lose. So
yeah,
I don't think that disrespecting that group serves any purpose.
yeah, yeah. My early to mid 20s was nothing but betting parlays on favorites, and not money lines, but like like road favorites or something like that. It was just like, and that's probably why I tend to um, over bet road, or sorry, home dogs now because of that. And I know that
But
I
you ain't
know
the only you ain't
yeah.
the only one.
So I know, and that's
It's
the thing.
hard to
Like,
get off of that.
and that's
It's
the thing.
hard to get off
That's
of
the
that.
thing. And that's the thing. I know better than to think just to blindly bet home underdogs because of my, like I can't just go off of my past experience and say, oh, that's bad now. It's like, well, you have to adjust, and every game's its own opportunity to analyze something. But yeah, I'm not to wind this down too much, but there was one listener question here because I will say I'm getting a little tired because I've been up for a while, but I did want to
We get
mention.
tired, me too.
I,
Wait. I didn't send you the beer. You drink a little bit
Yeah,
of beer.
yeah,
You have a little coffee. Have an
yeah.
espresso.
I'm not a coffee guy. That's the problem. But there was,
What?
yeah.
What are you, communist? I mean, you have any coffee.
I just drink, yeah. So there was one question here from John Lerner that I wanted to just bring up because I always want to bring up listener questions when they come up, but he wanted to know how, like, and to tie your beer thing together, he was asking how many beers you had when after the Cherry and the White beat Houston out. I'm not sure, that was, I had to actually look up Cherry and White, and that's Rutgers, I think. um
No, it's Temple. John went to
sorry,
Temple.
not Rutgers, Temple, that's my
Yeah,
bad, sorry.
yeah, John went to Temple.
um
I was
Temple.
not only did I go to Temple, but like I was I had season tickets to Temple for like 11, 12 years, and I donated money. Just it's just I was there was this just came up. I don't know if you got to watch the 30 for 30 with the Big East.
I did not. No.
If you get a chance to watch it, it won't hit you as much because you're from Chicago. But there's a big if you follow college basketball, it'll give you, even if you're younger than I. The tweet I sent out is that the reason college basketball doesn't hold the same the same thing for me, the snap for me, is because I grew up in its heyday. The Pearl
Sure.
Washington, Villanova
Yeah.
won in '85, and I mean I was a kid, but I wasn't a little kid, and I
Sure.
went to a lot of the games. I went to St. Joe's games, I went to Temple games, and it was. I mean, Brian, I had there was a thing out here before the internet in the '80s. It was called the Dave Gibbons newsletter. I ordered the fucking thing for Christmas. I think I was 12. They bought it for me and told me where all the high school players were. And I'd show it like, we were going to take a train to Dunbar. And somebody said, I don't think you should go to Dunbar. You're 13. You can't. You might. I was like, yeah, but this team's really good. They're like, nah, it's not the best neighborhood. I don't think you should go to Baltimore to watch a high school game. This is how obsessed I was in college at that age. So I knew way more than anybody from 12 to 15 should know, and that was the heyday of the Big East. And it's when John Chaney first got hired at Temple, and then Temple had a couple decent runs, and they started getting people that were really good in the city. And then they had the Mark Macon year, which was '88, and then that kind of like hammered down not just the Big East, but like this area of basketball. So I went to a couple different colleges. I ended up at Temple, and I was there when they had the really good team with Pepe Sanchez, and a couple years before that, they almost got Rasheed Wallace. People don't realize how close they were to getting Rasheed Wallace on the team. They had Mark Jackson, and so all that is context for I really kind of aggravated the university now, because so John Dayson was happy about them beating the number one team in the country, but this team lost to Maryland, Baltimore County at home by 20 or 18 or whatever the fuck it was. It was something terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm not a McKee fan. I'm not a fan of people who never coached basketball before. Matter of fact, there's a guy from South Jersey who coaches VMI. He played at Penn State, Danny Earl. He'd be a better coach at Temple. They'll never hire him here because they're about not coaching as much as they are as, hey, this is the marketing almost, so to speak. I think I've actually sent stuff to the athletic director and president I think if Temple's going to go down this path of marketing, they should hire Dawn Staley as the first woman head coach in men's basketball, because she's from Philly, and although she went to Virginia, she's known for being Philly. If you really want to make a statement, make her the head coach, because Aaron McKay makes no sense. So I guess the answer to John's question is no. I was like, okay, but you lost to Penn. I mean, you lost to Penn. You can't lose to Penn. You lost to Penn in the same city by like 18. Penn ain't no good. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of, they haven't made the tournament. They haven't made the tournament in 3 years since Dunphy coached. So now, how it correlates to you, where you're from, when I was growing up, there was the Player of the Year in Philadelphia Catholic League spurned everybody and went to DePaul. And I remember as a kid.
McGuire?
No, Dallas Comegys.
Okay.
Dallas Comegys.
That's the only old DePaul player that I remember the name of.
Well, you can Google. Just Google them. It's great.
Okay.
Because remember, everybody was like, DePaul? What? That's the school Terry Cummings and Mark McGuire played at. And I think Meyer's son coaches the team. That's all we know.
Okay.
That kind of put like, oh, where's DePaul at? Chicago. That'd be cool to kind of go there. One with Chicago, kind of spurred that kind of thing for basketball. Just tying you into this narrative here of Chicago, because I didn't know shit about LA, and I'm sure they have their own stories and all. But if you get a chance, I'd watch the 30 for 30 because it's really, really, really good, and it's very. It's good. It's really good. It's really good. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
If you have any questions about it, if you have any questions, ask me. You know what else you can ask? Probably ask Alan Boston, because Alan Boston went to Penn, but he's before that time. He's in the 70s. And he's like when I think Penn went to the Final Four in 79, but it was before it was really big. You can get this context, is that before ESPN, there was before ESPN and after ESPN. Okay. And ESPN really put a lot of this stuff on the map because you could watch the games. You could watch a lot of this stuff that where else would you watch it? It wasn't for ESPN, but local channel. You could watch Seton Hall on local access New Jersey, but outside of that, you couldn't watch any of this. And that document really shows how these guys were making nothing and blah 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 blah, and then they started recruiting rivalries, and then once Georgetown got Patrick Ewing could win anywhere. He was like Jabbar. And once they got it's really, really interesting.
Okay. Yeah. I'll have to look that up.
You can split this up into 2 pods if you like. You can call me tomorrow.
Oh I don't think my wife will let me do this again tomorrow.
No, yes she will. I'm going to send you beer. I'm going to send you the beer. I'm going to send you a couple gift cards. Believe me.
Yeah, I don't want to throw her under the bus. That's not. I'm not even talking about that, but yeah.
I'm going to send you some sweatshirts that'll say Bowl and Poke podcast, the whole thing. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate your time today, Mr. Professor, and I always enjoy the historical references because I am a fan of history, even with stuff that might have been before my time. That's why I always try to soak in conversations with people that are, and this isn't even an insult to you, but when people say older than you, like, I'm not saying that as an insult. I always try to learn as much as I can from people that are older than me. That goes for my parents, uncles, whoever. And I try to just soak in and listen whatever I can, whether it be.
Oh, I'm not insulted by that. Listen, there's a line. I'm a big movie person. I know. I know way too much about stupid good movies, but there's a part in Groundhog Day where Bill Murray says to Andy McDowell, he says, maybe God doesn't know everything. He's just been around so long he remembers everything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he meant.
Yeah.
He's like, maybe he's not omnipotent. He's just, you know, he's just been around so long he knows how this plays out. That's how I feel about getting older. It's just, you know, I'm not smarter than anybody. Matter of fact, I know I'm not smarter than anybody younger. I just have experience, and I know what doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you know what doesn't work for you. I mean, that's not to say
Yeah.
it
Don't
might
make the
work.
same mistake.
Yeah, I mean, something that didn't work for you could work for somebody else, but that doesn't mean it. But you're just speaking from your point of view, and that's, like I said, that's why I think I think it's good to learn from, people that have that experience. So yeah, thank you for joining. Once again, I'll probably put this out probably tomorrow morning because I'm guessing most people are probably sleeping at this point. But
Oh, yeah, definitely. People
yeah.
are going to be pissed I didn't put enough props out. But if they have any,
Yeah,
listen, I haven't done a pod. I haven't done a pod in a long time, so we can talk about it. But if people have any questions, they can DM me.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what number I got. Yeah.
Yeah, you're very generous with your time and your and you said, I know you've mentioned before in previous podcasts about answering questions and DMs and emails. So yeah, you're not shy about that. So yeah, if you have any specifics to ask him about, that, just reach out to him directly. He'll answer that. But thanks again for joining, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you whenever the next time is. I don't know when, but again, thank you and have a good night.